This death, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live. This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations. Welcome to this very special episode of Hard Lens Media. Shout out to our viewers on CAN TV as well. So we here at Hard Lens Media believe in giving a voice and platform to people that want to speak truth to power, but also more importantly, make the lives of working class citizens easier. Now, Chicago has a lot of problems. Yes, we have scumbag politicians. Yes, there is crime. This is all true, and we have a city that's struggling with lead in its drinking water. But another issue that's impacting the people of Chicago is, well, their ability to move freely in this city. Now, what do you mean by that? Well, let's face it. In this city, we've had an ongoing problem that the previous mayoral administrations have allowed to run rampant, and that is the red light cameras. These red light cameras, these police traffic stops, and insight into, again, racial inequities that continue to persist. And the thing is, recently now, there's been a report by this group called Free2Move Coalition that from around 2015 to 2021, the average Black Chicagoan or Latino drivers were stopped were 6 times more likely to be stopped than the average white driver. Latino drivers were twice as likely to be stopped than a white driver. And the thing is, it's becoming a persistent problem. Now, before the mayoral runoff on February 28th, this was an issue that was brought up by all the mayoral candidates. And I'm proud to bring onto the show a good friend. I worked with him back in the day in Costco. Plus, he's a fellow Marine like myself. I want to give it up for a good friend of mine who would listen to me when I was talking about Hard Lens Media when we were reporting stories in the streets of Chicago. So there are people who say that they were with Hard Lens from the beginning. This is one of those people. Shout out to José Manuel Almanza Jr. Good to have you here, my friend. Hold on, let me unmute you. All right, there you are. All right, good to have you on here.
Hey, Kit.
Welcome. So for those of you who don't know, occasionally Jose would say, hey, Kit, I heard Jimmy Dore was talking about you on his show today. Or there was a couple times when we went to see the Jimmy Dore show. What was it, 2018? I think 2019 we were there. I was over there at Talia Hall. So Jose, for our people, for our viewers and subscribers, this is awesome. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your organization that you're a part of, Free2Move Coalition?
Yeah, Kit, first of all, thanks for having me. And you're right. I remember talking about you doing Hard Lens Media, bringing it up, starting it up, stocking water, stocking toilet paper, working at Costco early in the morning. And look at us now. Amazing. Love to see it. Well, folks, nice to meet y'all. My name is José Manuel Almanza, he, him pronouns, and I am the Director of Advocacy for Equiticity. And Equiticity, we're a nonprofit based here in the west side of Chicago. We're part of the Free2Move Coalition. And the Free2Move Coalition got started out not too long ago after this study done by a Chicago Tribune called Biking Where Black. And that study found that Black cyclists were getting ticketed for riding their cycles on the sidewalk, which is illegal, more than white cyclists, which was like, whoa, we didn't even know that it was illegal to ride your bicycle on the sidewalk. Well, then Equiticity got involved, and we're like, wait, let's dig a little bit deeper. So we also found that we partnered up with the University of California to do some more research to dig in a little bit more into the subject. We found out that the places where Black cyclists were getting ticketed the most, which is Black and brown neighborhoods, there's also almost zero cycling infrastructure. So, I mean, who can blame someone for riding their bicycle on the sidewalk when there's no bike lanes and there's traffic everywhere? So we're over here advocating for, one, just an alternative way to look at traffic justice, traffic violence, instead of just adding a speed light camera, instead of just adding a red light camera, and instead of just pulling over and ticketing folks.
So here's sorry, I think there's a little bit of an echo. So here's what I've noticed, especially in the article that you sent me, which again, the Chicago mayoral election was talking a lot about this, especially all the mayoral candidates. Now, we all know what happened after February 28th. Mayor Lightfoot, hold on, I'm going to love saying this. Mayor Lightfoot lost her reelection, and the city of Chicago no longer has to deal with that incompetent mayor. I mean, oh God, that's like eating a fine steak dinner, you know, a nice steak dinner with a red wine of your choice. However, there's been a lot of problems with Lightfoot and how her administration was handling this. If you can, because a lot of our viewers don't understand the travesty that was the Lightfoot administration. When your group was speaking about this, was there any kind of contact or anything from the mayor and her administration, any of her staffers reaching out to you guys? Because when Lightfoot was running in 2019, when I interviewed her and when I was covering the mayoral debates, she was talking about putting an end to all of this. Did anything fundamentally change under Lightfoot's administration? And did you guys ever hear anything back from her or her administration or any of her staffers?
No, we haven't, and it's been the opposite. So there's this thing called the Vision Zero platform, which is a nationwide traffic safety platform that a bunch of cities signed on to. Now, we think that there's one problematic part of it, which is the enforcement part of it. And that's nothing new. That's just the enforcement strategy is pretty much to educate drivers and work with police departments to enforce these new traffic laws. We're not done with that. We want to, look at different ways to achieve traffic justice. So we're calling for the city to remove enforcement out of its Vision Zero policy. We've been trying to meet with them, talk with them, even just give them our pitch. We haven't had any success with either Ram when he's the one who started it, much less with Lori Lightfoot. Well, you're right. She did a campaign as a very progressive candidate. Yes. And as soon as she got into office, I mean, her first fight was with CTU. So that just tells you right away that she went back on her progressive ideals very, very quickly.
Yeah, and exactly. And when we talk about this mayor and, well, how hypocritical she is, I mean, not similar to Rahm Emanuel. She is Rahm Emanuel 2.0. And let's face it, her little, convoy of vehicles whenever they were driving to events would easily run through red lights. Yeah, like it was nothing. Similar to Rahm Emanuel and his convoy, his little vehicle convoy, we would do the same thing too. Whereas if you did that or any other Chicagoan would do that, well, let's just say you are going to be paying a severe ticket, and heaven forbid if a cop car pulls you over. Now, there's been some reports here. I want to just confirm this, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on this. But traffic stops have increased almost 7 times between the years of 2015 to 2019, jumping from nearly 85,900 plus traffic stops, and again in 2015 to now 598,515 traffic stops in 2019. Now, those numbers did drop in 2020 because of the lockdown, but then the traffic stops began ticketing up when 2021 was coming around here. Could you elaborate more to our viewers exactly what was happening and in regards towards how authentic or legitimate were all these traffic stops were? Because in many ways, when people are pulled over, we've seen the videos on social media, a car is being pulled over almost for no reason whatsoever. Could you elaborate more on that, Jose?
Yeah, for sure. And great question, Kate. So in 2015, like you mentioned, that is when the ACLU filed a lawsuit against the Chicago Police Department right after the courts found that the stop and frisk policy was unconstitutional. So police departments had to, stop the policy of stop and frisk. So immediately, almost overnight, they switched strategies to pulling over and searching vehicles. So instead of, stopping pedestrians or just anyone out in the street, they switched to just pulling vehicles over. So that's why we saw a dramatic, sharp increase after 2015. And you're right. It's no surprise that Black and brown people get pulled over more than white drivers. I don't think that's like breaking news. But what is was very important about the research that we did, what we found is the outcomes. So, for example, in 2021, only 4.26% of stops resulted in a citation. All right. In 2021, less than 1% of stops resulted in the recovery of contraband. In 2021, 0.70% of stops resulted in the recovery of firearms. In 2021, 2.25% of stops resulted in arrest. Now, what that tells us is all they're doing is stopping Black and brown drivers, harassing them, not finding guns, not finding drugs, not ticketing people, just building more resentment between Black and brown communities and the Chicago Police Department or our local government, because all they're doing is just harassing folks, because the data is clear. They're not finding guns, contraband, or people on warrants, or they're not even giving out tickets. All they're doing is pulling over and unreasonably searching people, hoping to find these things and hoping that they get lucky and find something, but they don't.
Look, I want to just read an excerpt, if it's okay. It's a quote from you from the article. It's from Chicago Tonight, and I'm going to be mentioning you being on that show. It's on public television here in Chicago. It's a big show. And shout out to you. When I saw you on there, I was like, holy cow! I remember back in the day, you and I were at Costco doing that grind, and now look at us now, like you said. So it's good to see you here. With your permission, may I read this quote here?
Of course, yeah.
All right. And folks, this isn't right. I'm sorry that you had to go through this. I get nervous. I get sweaty. My heart starts racing. I start stuttering and ask myself, am I looking suspicious? This is from you. This is conversations that I hear from folks all over the west side and south side of Chicago. So let's address that here. When people are being pulled over, predominantly African-American, Latino drivers, there's a sense of fear, because we've seen the videos on social media. We've seen police brutality. And let's face it, Lightfoot, especially during her administration, similar to Rahm Emanuel's administration, are more than willing to turn a blind eye to these videos and dismiss it, or either that eventually just have the city pay off with the family. But I mean, this is long-term trauma that severely impacts people for generations and communities for generations. I would like you to comment on this.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what the data supports, but doesn't explicitly show, is the human cost in this, where, it's kind of common for Black and brown drivers to, as the data shows, to get pulled over, and, you'll get pulled over for a broken taillight, for example. But then they ask you, do you have a gun? Or then they ask you, who else is in the car? And then they want to see their IDs. They want to run their names. They want to just, it feels like they're just fishing for something. And then since they're not arresting people, since they're not finding guns, since they're not finding drugs, since they're not giving people tickets, all this is just, continuing the resentment felt by the community and the police. And then on top of that, the stories are true. Like you said, the generational trauma is true, and we're seeing it where they're just harassing us for no reason. And that trickles down to having a mini anxiety attack whenever you get pulled over, and trying to do the right thing. But even in those cases, I mean, we've seen plenty of videos when people are doing the right thing and doing what they're told, and they still end up getting shot.
Yeah, and again, it's just been an ongoing problem. Especially, a lot of it seemed to intensify even more so under Lightfoot's administration, and how she was dealing with police brutality. One of the most notable situations was during the Black Lives Matter protests, or any other protest that was taking place. Lightfoot would be quick to raise up the drawbridges.
Yep.
And under her administration, just simply dismiss the problem, or quickly just start yelling at people or dismissing people and their concerns. So now that her administration, or basically, let's be more clear, let me say this with absolute pride, now that Lightfoot is going bye-bye, like filet mignon, just saying those words. It's like a filet mignon saying those words. But now that Lightfoot is leaving, what are some of the long-term damages that this previous mayor of ours have done to the communities on the south and west side? Because Lightfoot most notably said in February, as the election was running down, if you're not going to vote for a person named Lightfoot, don't vote. Basically vote shaming people on the south and west side. What are some of the long-term damages that her administration has done to the communities on the south and west side?
Yeah, she definitely contributed to the continual disinvestment of, the south and west sides of Chicago, which is, black and brown communities. And she definitely continued the trend of continuing to bloat the CPD budget. And it's hard to spend money on anything else when 40% of the budget goes to one agency. And then that agency isn't providing a service that the people in those communities want. Like, yes, we all want safety, we all want less crime, we all want those things, but at the same time, we don't want to get harassed, day and night in return, and then at the same time, not being any much safer. So that's definitely her legacy, because she ran a lot on not opening up the cop academy.
Mm-hmm.
She ran on increasing school funding. She ran on opening up mental health clinics. She ran on social programs. She ran on youth summer programs. None of those things happened. And what she did do is, increase the police budget.
Yes, exactly. And for those of you who don't know, again, Lightfoot, when we interviewed her, promised so many progressive changes, but again, she went to war against CTU. She went to war against anyone that was going to be critical of how her administration was handling anything in regards to the city of Chicago and the people's well-being. Large real estate developers coming in, gentrifying neighborhoods. You have, again, unchecked police brutality and police corruption. You have, again, environmental racism impacting the communities on the south and west side. And again, you have crumbling infrastructure, lead in our drinking water, and so much more. Lightfoot's legacy is that nothing changed. Well, things did change. They got progressively worse. But don't worry, Jose. We're going to get NASCAR in the summer. Isn't that great?
Who thought we needed NASCAR? I didn't know we needed it.
According to some people who were reading that little deal that she made with NASCAR, that most of the city's going to be paying for most of it. Like NASCAR just basically got a free lunch. Isn't that great? A nice free lunch.
And that's the same with the mega festivals. Like Riot Fest, where the NASCAR is just a bigger example of what's happening in the neighborhoods where our public parks are being sold for private profit. Much like, NASCAR is going to be around Grant Park, which is a public park. So now Grant Park is going to be closed to the public during the time that NASCAR happens, just like it happens in smaller neighborhoods like Douglas Park, where a music festival comes in and moves into our public park, and now neighbors can't use that park for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks while this festival is being brought up. The festival happens and then it's teared down. We're continuing to see just this neoliberal trend of our progressive officials making deals with businesses, setting off our public spaces.
If anything, I'm not asking you to give your comment on any of the mayoral candidates, be they from the runoff or even its final election, but do you think the two choices we have, like, they can be able to fix the problems in this city? Because, not only did Lightfoot do nothing about Rahm Emanuel's overall policies, but she's leaving behind, I don't want to say a whole pile of crap. I'm going to say it's maybe a mountain of crap, but can it be done, or is there another alternative? Can we as citizens step up to start demanding more and doing more? What is the overall end goal? Because I said this in regards to covering national politics. Don't rely on these politicians. They're not going to come and help you. I mean, can anyone truly fix this, or is there another way?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kit. I think regardless of who wins, people need to mobilize and get more involved because, any of our civil rights, any of our rights, any of our freedoms, nobody gave it to us. We all had to fight them to get them. And it's going to continue to happen whether we have a very progressive mayor or a, Republican conservative mayor. And I think this election is super interesting for two things. Like, the differences between Vallis and Johnson, like we might actually have a real mayor that might want to, in a way, defund the police, if not, at the very least, just maintain the budget just by itself. And then you have a candidate that is very, very pro-police, very more tough on crime. And if the defund the police candidate wins, in Chicago, I mean, that's just, I don't think we have any other defund candidate as any defund mayor in the country. And I think that signals that people are ready for something different. And I think that different is more community led and community involved processes, where the era of the administrator, the politician kind of coming in and saving us with one big policy, those days are over. Like, the policies need to come from the community. They need to be, you know, from the grassroots, lifted up to the decision makers, and then they need to pass those policies. But the key is that community needs to be part of the process from the beginning, and not just at the very end, just so we could check a box and be like, all right, we asked you questions, we asked for feedback, but actually use that to inform the policies that are going to be affecting us the most.
You know what? I'm very curious to see how this will play out. Voter turnout's going to be key. When I was giving my analysis on the Jimmy Dore show in regards to this, I mean, Paul Vallis, I mean, if we look at how he started in 2019, you know, in that runoff, he was at the bottom of the list. And now, obviously, he must have been taking notes, and he is now clearly, at least during that runoff on the 28th of February, getting 34% of the vote, and Brandon Johnson getting 21% of the vote. It's going to be up to Chicagoans to choose who they want to represent them, and hopefully, they won't be as bad as Lightfoot. If you got to be as bad as Lightfoot, you're breaking a record, because that one was that politician, that candidate was an absolute failure of a leader. So we need to start looking at more. So I think as a final question, this is a two-part question for your entire coalition, Free2Move coalition. Obviously, there's a lot of groups that are a part of it. There's a lot of great people there. So let me ask this initial question. When you were on Chicago Tonight, there was the opening for the CPD, the Chicago Police Department, to join in your panel discussion. And I just want you to just get your thoughts on it. They declined to join, but they did say this statement: officers only conduct traffic stops when they have probable cause or reasonable articulable suspicion that a crime has been committed, is being committed, or is about to be committed. These stops are not conducted based on race. Additionally, as part of our ongoing reform and consent decree compliance efforts, CPD mandates implicit bias training for all Chicago police officers. I know they gave that statement. Your thoughts on it real quick? I mean, overall, because I know that you were on Chicago Tonight, there to speak from your perspective. They leave this statement. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I was telling my colleague Lauren, who was also on the panel with me, like, I wish they would have shown up. Like, I wanted to talk to them to their face, you know. And of course, they weaseled their way out and then sent some, you know, platitude-filled statement. And that statement all of it is contradicted by the data. The data shows that they're not using probable cause. Because if they were using probable cause, then they would have found firearms, they would have found contraband, they would have cited folks, they would have arrested people, but they didn't. They didn't find none of those things. So they were just pulling people over, hoping that they would find something, meaning they had no probable cause. And of course, they're doing this in Black and brown neighborhoods, and they're what's it called? Profiling, racially profiling. So they're pulling over Black and brown drivers, even in areas where it's predominantly white or other races. So it's complete bullshit. It's just a lie, and the data supports that.
Rock and roll, man. That's perfect way to respond to that. And then final question, and again, this is also the two-part question, so because I wanted to get this statement, and so sorry if I misspoke that first time. Are there any kind of events that Free2Move Coalition will be doing, and where can our viewers and subscribers follow the Free2Move Coalition online? Or is there any kind of social media sites that people should go to? Please share it.
Yeah, for sure. So right now we're having a webinar series. So tomorrow, actually, we're having our second series, and that's where we're going to be talking about alternatives and solutions. So if police officers can't pull someone over for having a broken taillight, so then how else do we keep our roads safe? So we'll be talking about that, because it's important to talk about solutions as well, not just naming the problem. So that's going to be happening tomorrow, and people can get more information and RSVP at free2moveshy.org, and that's with the number 2, free number 2 moveshy.org.
All right, thank you so much for joining us here. We really appreciate the time for you to be on our show. And I think as a final note as well, it was many years ago, you and I were working that morning shift at the good old Costco warehouse, and both of us served in the Marine Corps. It's very good to see where you're going at and where things have gone. And hey, I told you one day you'd be on Hard Lens Media. I told you. I remember telling you that.
You sure did, and I'm glad it happened. And dude, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of us.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what's next.
Exactly. Not stopping for nothing. But seriously, though, we need to start taking care of these pallets right here because all this stuff ain't going to stock itself, man. I mean, then we got to go to freezers, and then we got to go to everywhere else. We just got to keep on lifting. Then we got to go to the bale machine, man. We got to put all that cardboard in there. That was tough to do, folks. Okay.
Yep.
If I didn't have my morning coffee, I was not a happy fellow as Kit Cabello. So there you go. And
also that type of work deserves a living wage. Just like Costco took care of its employees, took care of us. We had a sweet wage, we had healthcare. Yeah. A lot of the same coworkers working for Walmart or other, retail chains don't get those same wages, don't get the same benefits. And I'm sure, I know you're with it, but it's important to also name, we got to demand fair wages. We got to demand everything. Nothing's going to be given to us. We have to fight for everything. Exactly.
I will say this, look, Costco treated me good, but compared to our contemporaries and other large retail, man, they're getting hurt. All right, so shout out to all of our fellow retail workers wherever you're at, but Costco's number one. Gonna hold those days close to my heart. But until then, folks, shout out to all the great work that Jose and his colleagues, Free2Move Coalition. One last time, where can people follow Free2Move Coalition online?
Free2MoveShy.org with a number 2.
All right, awesome with that, folks. We'll be ending this segment and we'll be playing a song from Jesse Jet's album. We'll be playing something a little bit different from Everyone Who Disagrees with You is an Extremist. We'll be playing Apple Model 3 Slave Collar. So there you go. Shout out to all of you lovely people. We are up out of here. Peace, and let us all do what we can to build a better future.
Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. So there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream. And for premium subscribers, doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind. Like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned. It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show, stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple hiles. Honorary goose step and some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something title, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blinded idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.